The most overlooked woman in the airport was serving coffee to the man who had once broken her heart, and she had no idea he had spent 10 years trying not to remember her. Evelyn Carter tied the faded black apron around her waist and looked up at the clock above the small airport cafe. It was 7:42 in the morning, but her feet already ached as if the day had lasted for hours. The rush had started before sunrise, with tired travelers asking for hot coffee, blueberry muffins, extra napkins, and directions to gates she did not have time to point toward. Her hands smelled like soap and roasted beans. Her hair, once the thing her friends said made her look like a movie star, was twisted into a messy bun with a pencil holding it in place. She had not slept much the night before because her 5-year-old son, Noah, had kicked off his blanket twice, then woken from a dream asking if they would ever have a bigger apartment. Evelyn had smiled in the dark and told him, "Someday, baby." She did not say that rent was late again, that the fridge held half a carton of milk, 4 eggs, and 2 apples, or that her landlord had left a notice under the door with red ink across the top. She only kissed his forehead and watched him fall back asleep. Now she moved behind the counter with the speed of someone who could not afford to fall apart. "Large cappuccino, no sugar," a man said, tapping his phone. Evelyn nodded, already making it before he finished. She knew the regulars, the flight crews, the business travelers, the older couple who flew to Denver every month to see their grandkids. She knew who wanted cinnamon, who wanted oat milk, who would complain about waiting even when the line was only 3 people deep. Knowing small things helped her survive. She handed the cappuccino over with a polite smile, took a breath, and turned toward the glass wall facing Gate 18. That was when her world stopped. Across the terminal, near a row of gray seats, a man sat alone with a laptop open on his knees and a black leather duffel bag beside his polished shoes. His navy suit fit him like it had been made for him, which it probably had. His dark hair was neatly styled, his shoulders straight, his face calm in the way only rich men seemed able to be calm in public places. But it was not the suit that made Evelyn freeze. It was his eyes when he glanced up from the screen. Adrian Sterling. For 1 second, the airport noise disappeared. No rolling suitcases. No boarding calls. No espresso machine screaming behind her. Only Adrian, the boy who had once walked 3 miles in the rain because her car would not start. The boy who had read poems in a terrible British accent just to make her laugh. The boy who had kissed her on the steps of the public library and promised he would never leave without saying goodbye. He had left anyway. Evelyn looked down at her coffee-stained apron, her worn sneakers, the small burn mark on her wrist from yesterday's hot pan. She turned away quickly and pretended to wipe the counter, but her hands trembled. 10 years had passed. 10 years could turn a girl into a tired woman, a dream into a debt, and a promise into a scar. Maybe he would not know her. Maybe the years had changed her enough. Then an elderly man near the seating area dropped his canvas tote, and the contents spilled across the floor. Magazines, a pill bottle, crackers, a pair of glasses. Evelyn did what she always did. She rushed out from behind the counter and knelt to help. "I've got it, sir," she said softly, gathering everything with careful hands. She handed him the bag and smiled. "There you go." When she looked up, Adrian was staring straight at her. His face had gone still, but his eyes were not cold. They were stunned, almost hurt. "Evelyn," he said, barely above a whisper. She heard it anyway. Her name and his voice reached places she had locked long ago. She stood too fast, nodded once like he was a stranger, and hurried back to the cafe. Behind her, Adrian closed his laptop without saving what he had been typing. In that one look, 10 years rushed through him with painful force. He remembered the college courtyard in October, her red scarf, her laugh, the way she believed in him when his own family only cared about his last name. He remembered his father saying Evelyn was not the right kind of woman, that she came from the wrong side of town, that love was something poor people used when they had no plan. He remembered the scholarship overseas, the pressure, the calls he did not return because every message felt harder than the last. He had told himself leaving was temporary. Then pride, fear, and family turned temporary into forever. Now she stood 15 yards away, wiping cups in a cafe, and looked like life had asked too much from her. Adrian waited until the line thinned, then walked toward the counter. Evelyn felt him coming before she saw him. "Hi," he said. Her throat tightened. "Hi." He looked at her name tag. as if he needed proof she was real. Do you have a minute? She glanced at the clock, then at her manager in the back. My break is in 10. They sat near the window where planes moved slowly across the runway like large silver birds. For a while, neither of them spoke. Adrian noticed the tired shadows under her eyes, but also the strength in the way she held herself. Evelyn noticed his watch, his smooth hands, the quiet power around him, and she hated that part of her was still proud of him. It's been a long time, he said. 10 years, she answered. How have you been? It was such a small question for such a large wound. Evelyn looked at her coffee, now lukewarm. I have a son. Noah. He's 5. Adrian blinked, and something in his expression softened. You're a mother. Yes. Her voice carried no shame, only love. It's just the two of us. And you work here? Mornings here. Some nights I clean offices downtown. It pays enough most months. Most months was not the truth, but it was close enough. Adrian leaned back, quiet. He had led board meetings in towers, signed deals worth millions, and still he did not know what to say to the woman he once loved when she was sitting across from him with tired hands and a proud face. I'm not surprised you made it, he said at last. You were always stronger than anyone I knew. Evelyn gave a small smile that did not reach her eyes. Strong is what people call you when there isn't another choice. Before he could answer, an older traveler nearby struggled to lift a bag from the floor. Evelyn stood at once. Excuse me. She helped the woman settle the bag, then returned to the table with half her muffin wrapped in a napkin and handed it to a little girl waiting with her mother nearby. Adrian watched without speaking. She had less than most people in the room and still gave as if kindness were a habit she could not quit. His boarding group was called. He stood slowly. Evelyn, I know this is sudden, but may I give you my card? She almost refused. Then she thought of Noah, the rent notice, the thin line between pride and danger. She took it. And if it's all right, he added carefully, may I have your number? Not to pressure you, just so I can check that you and Noah are okay. Evelyn hesitated. 10 years ago, she would have given him anything without thinking. Now even a phone number felt like opening a locked door. Still, there was something in his face that did not feel like pity. It felt like regret. She typed her number into his phone and handed it back. Just in case, he said. Just in case, she repeated. He walked away, but turned once before entering the jet bridge. Evelyn had already gone back behind the counter, tying her apron tighter, disappearing into the morning rush. But she did not disappear from him. 3 days later, Adrian was in a glass conference room on the 43rd floor of Sterling Global, listening to a senior manager discuss expansion numbers. But his mind kept returning to an airport cafe and the woman who had looked at him like he was both memory and mistake. His assistant placed a folder in front of him. He signed where she pointed, nodded when someone asked a question, and answered with the calm confidence expected from Adrian Sterling, founder and CEO. On paper, his life was perfect. He had a penthouse view, a house outside the city, a company people studied in business magazines, and enough money to buy nearly anything. But he often ate dinner alone, worked until midnight, and came home to rooms so silent he could hear the heating system turn on. He had dated women who looked perfect in photographs, women his mother would have approved of, women who knew which fork to use at fundraisers and how to smile beside him at charity events. None of them had ever felt like home. Evelyn, meanwhile, returned to the same hard rhythm that had carried her for years. Wake before dawn, pack Noah's lunch, walk him to Mrs. Alvarez next door, who watched him before kindergarten for a few dollars less than anyone else. Work the cafe, pick Noah up, clean offices when she could, count cash, stretch groceries, smile when Noah asked if they were okay. On Thursday evening, she climbed the stairs to their apartment and found Mr. Grayson waiting outside her door, his heavy coat buttoned to his chin. His face was already set in disappointment before she spoke. Mr. Grayson, I was going to call you. I've heard that before, Ms. Carter. He held up the notice. You're behind again. I can't keep doing this. Evelyn lowered her voice. I get paid tomorrow from the cafe, and I have a cleaning shift Saturday. I can give you part of it by Monday. You said that last month. Please. My son is inside. Mr. Grayson sighed, not cruel enough to enjoy it, but not kind enough to change his mind. You need to be out by tomorrow evening. The words landed like a door closing. Tomorrow. I'm sorry. But he did not look sorry as he walked away. Evelyn stood in the hall with her keys in her hand and a buzzing sound in her ears. Inside, Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring a dinosaur purple because, as he had explained, dinosaurs did not know they were supposed to be green. "Mommy, look," he said, holding up the page. "He's a happy dinosaur." Evelyn pressed one hand to her mouth, swallowed the tears, and smiled. "He's beautiful." That night, after Noah fell asleep, she sat at the tiny kitchen table with Adrian's card in front of her. The letters were simple and raised. Adrian Sterling, CEO. The phone number below looked like a bridge and a trap at the same time. She hated the idea of calling him. She hated the idea of needing help from anyone, especially the man who had once left her with questions she had carried for a decade. But pride did not keep a child warm. Before she could decide, her phone buzzed. Adrian Sterling. "Evelyn, I hope this isn't too forward, but I've been thinking about you and Noah. Are you both okay?" She stared at it for so long the screen went dark. When it lit again, her reflection looked back at her, pale and exhausted. She typed, "We're fine." Then she deleted it because it was a lie. She wrote, "Not really." Then her thumb hovered over send. She thought of Noah sleeping in the next room, of the suitcase she had not yet packed, of the cold street waiting outside if she made the wrong choice. She pressed send before fear could stop her. Adrian replied within seconds. "Where are you?" Evelyn closed her eyes, then sent the address. She did not ask him to come. She only wrote, "We have to leave tomorrow. I'm trying to figure something out." The next afternoon, the apartment was no longer theirs. Evelyn stood on the sidewalk with Noah's small hand in hers, one suitcase beside them, and a stuffed rabbit tucked under Noah's arm. The November air was sharp, the kind that slipped through cheap coats. Noah looked up. "Are we going on a trip?" Evelyn knelt and fixed his zipper. "Something like that." She did not know where they would go. A shelter, maybe. A church if someone answered. Mrs. Alvarez had family staying over and no room. Evelyn was reaching for her phone when a black SUV pulled to the curb. Adrian stepped out. No driver, no show, just him in a dark overcoat with worry written across his face. He looked at the suitcase, then at Noah, then at Evelyn. He understood before she said anything. "Evelyn," he said gently, "come stay with me." She stepped back. "No, just for a few days. Until you figure out what you want to do." "Adrian, I can't." "You can. And you don't have to call it charity. Call it bad timing. Call it an old friend helping. Call it anything you can live with." Noah tugged at her hand. "Mommy, is he the airport man?" Adrian crouched to Noah's height. "I am. My name is Adrian." Noah studied him. "Do you have snacks in your car?" Adrian smiled for the first time that day. "I can make that happen." Evelyn looked down the street, then at her son's red nose and thin gloves. She had survived many things by being proud, but motherhood had taught her that love sometimes meant accepting help before the world became colder. "A few days," she said quietly. Adrian nodded. "A few days." He took the suitcase before she could protest and opened the back door. As they drove away, Evelyn watched the old apartment building shrink behind them. She felt fear, shame, relief, and something softer she did not want to name. Adrian's house stood 25 minutes outside the city on a calm street lined with maple trees. It was not the cold mansion Evelyn had imagined. It was large, yes, with tall windows and a stone path, but warm lights spilled from inside, and a wreath hung on the front door though Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away. Noah pressed his face to the car window. "Does a prince live here?" Evelyn whispered. "Noah." Adrian laughed softly. "No prince. Just me." The guest room had a queen bed with white blankets, a small desk, and a view of the backyard where leaves moved in the wind. Noah ran to the window and gasped as if he had discovered a national park. Evelyn stood in the doorway, arms folded, afraid to touch anything. "You can use anything you need," Adrian said. "Kitchen, laundry room, the den. I'll show you around. We won't be in the way. You're not in the way." She looked at him then, really looked, and for a moment he was not the CEO from the airport or the young man who had hurt her. He was simply Adrian, standing in a hallway, trying carefully not to scare her with kindness. The first morning, Evelyn woke at 5:30 out of habit. The house was still. She found the kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and made scrambled eggs, toast, and oatmeal with sliced apples. She moved carefully, but cooking steadied her. It gave her something to do with gratitude she did not know how to speak. Adrian came downstairs in a gray sweater and stopped when he saw the table set for 3. "You didn't have to do this." Noah wakes hungry. She wiped her hands on a towel. And I didn't know what else to do. It smells better than anything I've made in months. Noah appeared in pajamas covered with little rockets and climbed into a chair. Mr. Adrian, do CEOs eat oatmeal? Only the smart ones, Adrian said. Noah nodded seriously. Then I will eat CEO oatmeal. Something in Evelyn's chest loosened. Over the next week, a new routine formed. Adrian left for work, but came home earlier than usual. Evelyn helped around the house because she needed to feel useful, though Adrian never asked. Noah followed Adrian from room to room, asking questions with the steady confidence of a child who believed adults existed to explain the world. What does CEO mean? It means I help make big decisions for a company. Can I be one if I still sleep with my rabbit? Absolutely. Many great leaders need a rabbit. Do you have one? Not yet. By Friday, Adrian had bought children's books, apple juice boxes, a nightlight shaped like the moon, and a small pack of dinosaur stickers. He did not announce it. He simply left them where Noah would find them. Evelyn noticed. She noticed almond milk in the fridge after Noah said regular milk made his stomach hurt. She noticed a soft throw blanket on the couch after she had fallen asleep there once. She noticed Adrian lower his voice when she looked overwhelmed and give her space when she grew quiet. It was the kind of care that did not demand applause. One night, Noah developed a fever. It began with flushed cheeks at dinner and turned into a long, worried night. Evelyn sat beside him with a cool cloth, whispering that he was protected, that mommy was there, that morning would come soon. Still, her hands shook. A sick child could make even the strongest mother feel helpless. Adrian appeared in the doorway with children's fever medicine, a thermometer, and his phone in hand. My family doctor is on the line, he said. She'll tell us what to do. Evelyn looked up, tears in her eyes. You don't have to stay awake for this. I know. He sat on the other side of the bed. But I'm staying. They took turns through the night, checking Noah's temperature, offering small sips of water, changing the cloth on his forehead. Adrian told a story about a brave rabbit who became chairman of a carrot company, and even half asleep, Noah smiled. By dawn, the fever eased. Noah slept deeply, one small hand curled around his stuffed rabbit. Evelyn leaned back against the bed frame, exhausted, her hair loose around her face. Thank you, she whispered. Adrian looked at her across the soft morning light. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. I've been scared alone for a long time. Last night, I wasn't. He did not answer quickly. He knew careless words could break the fragile trust forming between them. But inside him, something certain settled. He had spent years building a company, chasing numbers, winning rooms full of people who barely knew him. Yet sitting on the floor beside Evelyn and her son, watching sunrise touch the edge of the curtains, felt more meaningful than any success he had ever held. The following Saturday, Adrian suggested a picnic at a park near the river, the kind with wide lawns, walking trails, and old oak trees that dropped leaves over the benches. Evelyn hesitated because outings still felt like luxuries, but Noah shouted, "Picnic!" so loudly that hesitation became impossible. Adrian packed sandwiches, fruit, cookies, and a thermos of hot chocolate. Evelyn added napkins, wipes, and the calm knowledge of a mother who expected spills. The park was cool but bright, the sky blue enough to make the city look kinder. Noah ran ahead in his sneakers, chasing leaves and calling himself Captain Rabbit. Adrian spread a blanket under an oak tree while Evelyn unpacked lunch. For a little while, no one was poor, rich, abandoned, or afraid. They were only 3 people eating sandwiches in the sun. After lunch, Noah pulled a folded paper from his backpack. I made this for you, he told Adrian. Adrian opened it carefully. 3 stick figures stood under a yellow sun. One had long brown hair. One was small and held a rabbit. One was tall in a blue square that Noah explained was a business suit. Above them, in uneven letters, he had written, Mommy, me, and my CEO dad. Adrian's smile faded into something tender and surprised. Evelyn's face warmed. Noah, she said softly, taking the drawing before her voice could shake. That's very sweet, but Mr. Adrian is not. She could not finish. Noah looked confused. But he makes breakfast sometimes and reads the rabbit book. Adrian kept his voice gentle. That is a big honor, buddy. Noah beamed and ran after another leaf. Evelyn folded the paper slowly and put it in her bag instead of throwing it away. Adrian saw that, too. That evening, after Noah fell asleep, Adrian found Evelyn at the kitchen table with a mug of tea untouched between her hands. "I've been thinking," he said. "You're organized, patient, and smart. My company has a community outreach team. There might be a flexible role. Part-time. Something real." Evelyn looked at him with a sad smile. "I can't." "Why?" "Because from you, it would feel like a rescue. It would be a job. Maybe. But I need to earn the ground under my feet. I need Noah to see me stand." Adrian sat across from her, accepting the answer though it hurt. "I respect that." She looked surprised. "You do? I should have respected you more a long time ago." The room went calm. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Adrian took a breath. "I owe you an apology." Evelyn's hands tightened around the mug. "For leaving? For leaving without courage. For letting my family's voice become louder than my own. For not writing, not calling, not giving you even the dignity of goodbye. I told myself I was protecting my future, but the truth is I was afraid." Evelyn looked down. "I waited." The words were small, but they carried 10 years. "I know." "No, Adrian, you don't." "I waited until waiting started to feel like begging. Then I hated myself for it." His face tightened with pain. "I'm sorry. I built a life after you. Not the life I wanted, maybe, but mine. Then I made choices I'm not proud of. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. I became a mother, and that saved me, but it also showed me how alone I was." Adrian leaned forward. "You're not alone now." She shook her head, tears in her eyes, but not falling. "That is what scares me. When I look at you, part of me feels at peace. Another part remembers what it cost the last time I believed that." He wanted to reach for her hand, but he did not. "I haven't loved anyone the way I loved you," he said. "I tried to move on. I built a whole life around moving on. But none of it reached the place you did." Evelyn stood slowly. "I'm not that girl anymore. I know. I'm tired. I'm a mother. I have bills, fear, scars, a son who needs me to be careful. I can't afford a beautiful mistake." "Then don't call it beautiful. Call it slow. Call it honest. Call it whatever gives you room to breathe." She looked at him for a long moment, then walked toward the guest room. Adrian stayed at the table, knowing he had opened his heart, and she had shown him the walls around hers. In the weeks that followed, he did not push. He simply stayed steady. He read to Noah, fixed a loose cabinet handle, drove Evelyn to job interviews when she finally agreed to look beyond the airport cafe, and learned that she liked her coffee with too much cream but pretended she did not. Evelyn began to laugh more. At first it surprised her, a sound she had almost forgotten. Then one afternoon, while Noah wore one of Adrian's old ties and declared himself president of the living room, Evelyn laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. Adrian watched from the doorway with a softness that made her look away. Hope was returning, not loudly, but like light under a closed door. One crisp afternoon, Evelyn stood in the backyard clipping Noah's shirts to a line Adrian had installed after she said air-dried clothes smelled like childhood. The sky was pale blue, the air cool, the grass still damp from morning frost. Inside, Adrian and Noah were building a blanket fort in the living room. Noah's laughter spilled through the open back door. For the first time in years, Evelyn imagined a future that was not just survival. Maybe a small apartment of her own. Maybe a better job. Maybe Sunday dinners. Maybe, though she barely allowed herself to think it, a place beside Adrian that did not feel like debt. Then the doorbell rang. She went through the house, still smiling, and opened the front door. The smile vanished. Victor Kane stood on the porch with a wrinkled baseball cap in his hands, his coat too thin for the weather, his expression shaped into something that almost looked humble. Evelyn's body went cold. "Hi, Evie," he said. No one called her that anymore. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low, controlled. "I heard you were back around this side of town." "How did you find me?" "I stopped by your old building. Someone said a black SUV picked you up. Then I saw you at the airport cafe 2 days ago and followed at a distance." "Relax. I just wanted to talk." The way he said relax made her stomach tighten. "You need to leave. I came to see my son." The words were smooth, but she knew the man beneath them. Victor had not called when Noah was born. He had not helped with diapers, doctor visits, daycare, rent, or nights when a baby cried and Evelyn cried with him. He had vanished when responsibility became real. "You don't get to appear on a porch and call him your son," she said. Victor held up his hands. "I made mistakes. You made choices. I'm different now. I've got work. I'm trying." Evelyn did not believe him. Noah doesn't know you. Then maybe it's time he does. From inside, Adrian's voice called. Noah, careful with the lamp, buddy. Victor's mouth tightened. So that's him. The rich guy. Evelyn stepped outside and pulled the door almost shut behind her. Leave, Victor. His humble mask slipped for only a second. You think he'll keep playing house when he finds out everything? There is nothing to find out. There's always something. He leaned slightly closer, not touching her, but close enough to make old fear wake up. We should talk. Just you and me. Soon. No, think carefully. Custody can get messy. Judges like fathers who want to be involved. Evelyn's stomach dropped, but she kept her face still. You were never involved. Maybe I want to be now. He put the cap back on and stepped off the porch. I'll be in touch. She watched him walk away down the street. Inside, Noah laughed again, and Adrian made a silly pirate voice. The sound should have warmed her. Instead, it felt like glass in her chest. For 2 days, Evelyn said nothing. She told herself Victor would disappear again. People like him loved threats more than follow-through. But on the third night, while she folded laundry in the room off the kitchen, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You owe me a second chance. If you don't want trouble with Noah, get me $100,000. Your CEO friend can spare it." Evelyn stared until the letters blurred. Another message came. Don't make me go to court. No job, no home of your own, living under another man's roof. What will that look like? She did not delete the messages this time. Some instinct told her to keep them, so she took screenshots and saved them in a folder with shaking hands. More messages followed over the next few days. Victor hinted he knew Noah's school schedule. He said he could ruin her. He said Adrian would not want a woman with baggage once the story got ugly. He never wrote anything clear enough to make the fear simple, but he wrote enough to scare her. She kept smiling at breakfast. She helped Noah with letters. She told Adrian she was tired when he asked why she jumped every time her phone lit up. She wanted to tell him, but shame held her mouth closed. How could she bring this darkness into the one peaceful place Noah had known? How could she ask more from Adrian when she already felt like she was standing inside his generosity? One afternoon, Victor asked to meet at a diner near the edge of town. Evelyn went because ignoring him seemed more dangerous than hearing him. She chose a booth near the front window, where other people could see them. Victor slid in across from her, ordered coffee, and smiled like he had already won. You look good, he said. Don't. Still sharp. Say what you came to say. His smile faded. I want money. You get me that, I walk away. I don't have money. But he does. I'm not asking Adrian for a dime. Victor leaned back. Then I ask for rights. I tell the court you hid my son. I tell them you're unstable. I tell them you moved into a rich man's house because you couldn't provide. Evelyn's hands were cold under the table. You left before he was born. People change. You don't want Noah? You want control. Call it what you want. He stirred his coffee, though he had added nothing. 100,000. End of problem. Evelyn stood. Her legs felt weak, but her voice did not. No, Victor looked up. You'll regret being stubborn. Maybe. But I won't teach my son that fear gets to make every decision. She walked out before he could answer. That night, snow began falling. Light at first, then thick enough to coat the porch rails. Noah fell asleep, clutching his rabbit. Adrian worked late in his study, the door partly open, golden light spilling into the hall. Evelyn sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. Her heart felt split in two. She had spent her whole life learning to carry weight alone. Now love had appeared, real and patient, and her first instinct was to run before it could be taken from her. She wrote, Adrian, I am sorry. Then stopped. Tears fell onto the paper. She wrote again. Please don't come looking for us. I had to leave before my past could hurt the peace you gave Noah. Thank you for making us feel safe, even for a little while. Evelyn. She folded the note and placed it on the counter. Then she packed one small bag. Clothes for Noah, his medicine, crackers, a toothbrush, the stuffed rabbit. She stood outside Adrian's study for a long moment. He was on the phone, speaking quietly about contracts, unaware that the life in his house was slipping away. She almost knocked, almost told him everything. But Victor's words echoed. No job, no home of your own, living under another man's roof. A judge, a courtroom, Noah pulled between adults. Evelyn could survive losing many things. She could not survive losing him. Near 2 o'clock in the morning, she lifted Noah from bed, wrapped him in his coat and blanket, and carried him through the calm house. At the door, she looked back. The hallway light shone softly on the walls. The moon night light glowed in the guest room. The house smelled faintly of cedar and hot chocolate. It had begun to feel like home, and that made leaving hurt worse. She opened the door and stepped into the falling snow. Adrian woke before dawn with a feeling he could not name. The house was too still. He checked the guest room first. Empty. Noah's bed was empty, the blanket folded too neatly. The small backpack was gone. His chest tightened. He moved quickly to the kitchen and saw the note on the counter. The first line was enough to make his hands shake. He read it once, then again, as if the words might change. They did not. Evelyn had gone. Noah had gone. Adrian grabbed his coat, keys, and phone. He called Evelyn. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Snow made the roads slick and still, the city half asleep. He drove first to the old apartment building. No one. Then the airport cafe. Closed. He called Mrs. Alvarez, whose number he had from an emergency contact list Evelyn had left by the fridge. Mrs. Alvarez had not seen them and grew worried at once. He tried 2 shelters, a 24-hour clinic, the bus station downtown. Nothing. With every mile, Adrian felt the full weight of what Evelyn had carried alone. She had not left because she did not care. She had left because fear had convinced her love was another thing she could lose. By sunrise, he reached the smaller bus depot on the edge of town, a place with flickering lights, vending machines, and rows of plastic chairs. He ran inside, scanning faces, coats, bags. Then he saw her. Evelyn sat near the far wall with Noah asleep against her chest, wrapped in his blanket. Her hair was loose, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. One suitcase sat at her feet. Adrian stopped for only a second, relief hitting him so hard it almost hurt. Then he crossed the room and knelt before her. Evelyn looked up, and her face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." Adrian kept his voice low because Noah was sleeping. "Tell me." She shook her head. "Victor came back. He wants money. He said he'll go after custody. He said I look unstable, that I don't have a home, that I'm living off you. I couldn't drag you into it." Adrian placed his hand gently over hers. "Evelyn, you were never dragging me. I walked in because I wanted to. You don't understand. People with money can still get hurt. Reputations, companies, families. I know your world now. I don't belong in it. My world is not a room you have to earn your way into." She cried harder, silently, trying not to wake Noah. "I was scared he'd take my son." Adrian's face softened. "No one is taking Noah from the mother who raised him, loved him, and fought for him every day. You can't promise that. I can promise you won't face it alone." She looked at him, broken open by exhaustion. "Why? Why would you choose this mess when you could have anything else?" Adrian swallowed. "Because I love you, not the memory of you. You, the woman who gets up tired and still makes breakfast. The mother who gives away half her food. The person who thinks she has to be unbreakable because no one stayed long enough to hold anything with her. I love Noah too. I love how he asks questions, how he trusts with his whole heart, how he calls a stuffed rabbit a business partner. I'm not scared of your life, Evelyn. I'm scared of a life where you think you have to disappear from mine." Her breath caught. For a moment, the bus station faded around them. No announcements, no strangers, no snow at the windows. Only Adrian kneeling in front of her, not rescuing, not commanding, simply staying. Noah stirred and opened his eyes. "Mr. Adrian?" Adrian smiled through wet eyes. "Hey, buddy. Are we going home?" Evelyn looked at Adrian, then down at her son. The word home hung in the air, fragile and shining. Adrian stood and offered his hand. "Yes," he said softly. "All of us." She took his hand. Later that morning, back at the house, Evelyn finally showed him every message Victor had sent. Adrian did not explode, did not make promises built on anger. He became focused, steady, and careful. By noon, a family attorney sat in the study with a yellow legal pad and calm eyes. She explained what records mattered, what protections could be requested, and how Evelyn's history as Noah's sole caregiver gave her a strong position. Another attorney reviewed the financial threats and harassment. Evelyn kept expecting judgment, but none came. Only questions, notes, and plans. Adrian sat beside her, not speaking over her, letting her tell her own story. When her voice shook, his hand rested near hers, close enough to steady her if she wanted it. She wanted it. She took his hand under the table. In the weeks that followed, the legal process moved slowly but firmly. Victor learned that threats had consequences and that Evelyn was not standing alone in a diner anymore. Temporary protections were put in place. The messages were documented. Mrs. Alvarez, the cafe manager, Noah's pediatrician, and even Mr. Grayson provided statements showing Evelyn had always cared for Noah, even when life was hard. Victor's claims began to look exactly like what they were: pressure, not parenting. Evelyn also made a decision for herself. She accepted an interview at a nonprofit that helped single parents find childcare and job training. Adrian had not arranged it. A woman at the shelter office, whom Evelyn had called during the snowstorm, mentioned the opening. The pay was modest, but the hours fit Noah's school day, and the work mattered. When Evelyn got the job, she cried in the parking lot, then laughed because crying had become easier now that she did not have to hide every feeling. That night, Adrian and Noah made a celebration dinner that included slightly burned grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup from a can. Noah wore Adrian's tie again and announced, "Mommy is a boss now." Evelyn kissed the top of his head. Not quite. Adrian raised his glass of iced tea. She has always been one. Trust did not arrive all at once. Some nights Evelyn still woke from dreams of losing everything. Some mornings she apologized too much for using space in the house. But Adrian learned her fear without making her feel small. He left notes by the coffee maker that said things like, "You do not have to earn kindness today." Noah started kindergarten full-time and began telling people Adrian was his almost dad, then looked at Evelyn to see if that was allowed. She would smile softly and say, "That is between you and your heart, sweetheart." One evening in early spring, after the last of the snow had melted and the backyard grass turned green again, Evelyn found Adrian on the porch. He was holding Noah's old drawing, the one with the words "Mommy, me, and my CEO dad." He had framed it in simple white wood. "I was thinking of hanging it in the hallway," he said. Evelyn leaned against the door frame. "You kept it?" "Of course." She walked to him slowly. "Adrian." He looked up. "Yes. I'm still scared sometimes. So am I sometimes. But I don't want to run anymore." The words were quiet, but they changed everything. Adrian stood, and she stepped into his arms. There was nothing rushed in the way they held each other, nothing that needed to prove itself. It was respectful, patient, and full of years they could not get back, but might finally understand. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he said. From inside, Noah shouted, "Is anybody making dinner, or are we all just being emotional?" Evelyn laughed into Adrian's shoulder, and Adrian laughed too. It was the sound of a house becoming a family. One year after the morning Adrian found Evelyn and Noah at the bus depot, the garden behind his house looked like something Evelyn once would have thought belonged to someone else. White flowers lined a small aisle. Soft lights hung from the trees. Folding chairs filled the lawn. Not many, just close friends, a few people from Evelyn's new job, Mrs. Alvarez in a blue dress, Adrian's sister, and even his mother Margaret, who had taken months to understand that love was not a social plan but a choice. Richard Sterling did not come, and Adrian did not pretend that absence hurt less than it did. But he also did not let it darken the day. The sky was warm and clear, the kind of late afternoon that made every leaf shine. Evelyn stood inside by the back door, wearing a simple ivory dress with sleeves of soft lace. It was not the kind of dress that swallowed a woman in sparkle. It looked like her, graceful, strong, and real. Noah stood beside her in a little gray suit, holding a small bouquet with both hands as if it were the most important job in America. His stuffed rabbit had a matching ribbon tied around one ear. "Ready, Mommy?" he whispered. Evelyn looked down at him, tears already blurring her eyes. More than ready. Music began outside. The door opened. Everyone turned. Noah walked with slow, careful steps, holding Evelyn's hand. Halfway down the aisle, he forgot to walk slowly and waved at Mrs. Alvarez, who waved back and dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Evelyn laughed softly, and the sound carried over the garden. At the end of the aisle, Adrian stood beneath an arch of white flowers in a navy suit. When he saw Evelyn, his expression changed from nervous to wonder, as if the whole year had been a long breath, and now he could finally let it out. Noah led her to him and lifted his chin proudly. "Here she is, Dad." Adrian knelt, his eyes bright. "Thank you, Noah. That means more than you know." Noah hugged him quickly. then took his place beside them because he had insisted he was not just a ring bearer, but family security. The ceremony was simple. No grand speeches, no show of wealth, no empty performance. When it came time for vows, Evelyn took Adrian's hands. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. I used to think love was something that left when life got hard. You taught me that real love does not ask a person to be perfect before it stays. You saw me when I was tired, proud, afraid, and unsure. You never treated Noah as a burden. You treated him as a gift. Today I choose you, not because you saved me, but because you stood beside me until I remembered how to stand too. Adrian held her hands like they were something sacred. I spent years believing success meant building a life no one could take from me. Then you and Noah walked into my home and showed me that a life without love is only a quiet room. Evelyn, I choose your courage, your kindness, your hard days, and your laughter. I choose Noah, his questions, his rabbit, and every bedtime story we will ever read. I choose this family today, tomorrow, and every ordinary morning after. The officiant smiled through tears of her own. When she pronounced them husband and wife, the garden filled with applause. Noah jumped between them before they could even turn to the guests. Family hug, he shouted. Everyone laughed, and Evelyn wrapped one arm around her son and one around her husband. Later, as the sun dropped behind the trees and the lights glowed overhead, Evelyn stood barefoot in the grass, watching Noah teach Adrian's sister how to draw a CEO rabbit. Adrian came up beside her and slipped his hand into hers. This really happened, she said, almost to herself. It did. Sometimes I still feel like the woman at the airport, trying to hide behind a counter. Adrian looked toward the house, then back at her. She brought us here. Evelyn nodded, understanding. She did not hate that woman anymore. The tired mother in the apron, the woman with the overdue rent, the woman who nearly ran because fear had been her oldest habit. Every version of her had carried Noah forward. Every version deserved tenderness. Noah ran across the lawn toward them, his tie crooked, cheeks pink from laughter. Are we going inside? I'm starving. Evelyn smiled. You ate cake 10 minutes ago. Cake is not dinner. Adrian lifted him onto his hip with a groan. The young executive makes a strong point. Together they walked toward the open back door of the house. Warm light spilled across the porch and onto the grass. Behind them were years of heartbreak, bad choices, lonely nights, and fear. Ahead of them were school mornings, grocery lists, scraped knees, business trips, family dinners, arguments that ended with honesty, and love that did not need to shine every second to be real. Evelyn paused at the doorway and looked once more at the garden. She thought of the airport, the bus station, the snow, the note she had left, the hand Adrian offered anyway. She thought of how life sometimes breaks a person open only to let something better take root. Then she stepped inside with Adrian and Noah, not into a perfect future, but into one they would build together, one day at a time, because when one door closes, another opens.